Hi everyone, welcome to our channel Gyan and you are watching GauriBot Talks where we talk about basically anything and everything about robotics. First of all, I would like to thank you all for sending in all the love and for giving such an overwhelming response for our first video. All the suggestions that we got were really interesting and nice, and we've definitely tried to incorporate all of those in our upcoming videos. Okay, coming back to our today's session. So today I have the pleasure of talking to one of my mentors and one of the most humble and smartest people that I have ever met in my life, Dr. Masood Taheri. He did his doctorate and postdoctorate in vehicle systems and dynamics from Virginia Tech University and is currently working as a senior researcher in the autonomous vehicles domain at Luminar Technologies in California. Through him, we'll try to understand his journey and challenges in achieving the highest academic feats in his life and what he plans to do in the future. So let's get started. Hi, Masood.
Hi, Gauri. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I think everybody would be really delighted to see you today and to learn from your experiences. Yeah, hopefully we'll take away a lot from today's session. So I think to start with, I was reading about your journey, and earlier you were working in the biomedical domain. So then, how did this shift to robotics happen, and when did it happen?
Yep. Great question. So, uh, I always had a passion for building things, working with small robots, motors, and things like this. I even did an internship in a small company that was making some specialized machines for a steel manufacturing company. And I was very interested in robotics in the beginning, but as you said, when I started my research as a senior student when I was an undergrad, and then later on working on the same topic during my master's, I was mainly focused on material development and some biomedical applications of those materials. But uh, during that process, I actually had to work on some precise actuation mechanisms for those devices, especially the drug delivery systems and some orthopedic devices that we were working on. So I was like, this is really interesting for me. If I ever want continue my research or my career, I really like to learn more about this and actually continue working on this specific area. So that's why I actually uh, shifted my research mostly toward robotics control and also and later on like vehicle engineering.
So, that's really interesting. So, but then, as far as the research part of it is concerned, were you always sure that you want to do a PhD, or
Uh,
it?
no, not at all. Actually, when I was doing my master's, I was like, hey, this is the end of it. I'm gonna graduate, go find a job, and just be done with the school, uh, like many other people. And I actually started interviewing at a few companies, but then it was, I think, third semester. Yeah, it was sometime in the third semester. I was like, hey, I think I have the potential to continue my research. I'm enjoying research, and maybe I should do something more serious. And also, I had a very supportive advisor during my master's, and he was kind of pushing for it. So he wanted me to actually go for a PhD, and he I mean, I remember when I was talking to him about my interviews and stuff, he was like, no, you shouldn't do this. You should apply for PhD programs. You should really focus on your research and things like this. So it was definitely a big push for us. Um, and of course, I think at that point I was also considering other stuff, like my passion for teaching was another reason that I decided to go for a PhD. And also at that point I was thinking that getting a PhD could actually bring more options to me in the future. I would have more flexibility over what I want to do during my career. But of course, this was not a very easy decision at all. It was very challenging. Yeah, and yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, totally understandable. But one thing I would like to understand there is, do you think like a person really needs to possess some specific skills to do a PhD? Like, I believe, you need to be really patient if you want to get into it, because whenever I think about doing PhD, I literally get chills. So, what are those skills that one needs to have?
Yeah, I think you need to be, as you said, you need to be patient, have perseverance over what you're doing, and because I mean, this is a long commitment. You're probably committing to at least a 4-year program, so you have to be patient, and you have to take the risk of spending 4 years of your life on a very specialized topic. So yes, you also have to see if what you're planning to do in your PhD, if the research that you are planning to do, is it in line with your interest and is it in line with your passion? Because there will be times during that journey that you get frustrated or bored with your research and you want to see, and you just ask yourself, hey, is this worth it or not? And it would be very difficult to persuade yourself if it is not in line with what you really want to do after you graduate,
Right.
after you get your degree. Yeah.
But then, how does one make sure that the research actually aligns with the interest?
Yes. Yeah, that is probably not that easy. I think one thing that definitely helps is when when you are doing a master's and you get to actually do some research, you get familiar with the research environment and some different research topics. That would definitely help. You can start looking into topics that might be interesting for you in the future. Um, but I would definitely recommend everyone to actually go talk to the advisors or the faculty that they want to join to the and join to the labs, and see if what they're doing is really interesting to them, because you can I think you can actually look at the portfolio of a lab and see what other students are doing in that lab and kind of uh, guess um, if a new project would be interesting to them or not, because it's going to be mostly in line with what others are doing in that lab.
Right.
That's what I did. I actually talked with few students, former students in the lab, and also talk to the advisor and see if it really matches with what I want to do in the future.
Hmm. That's right. That's a really important tip, actually. So you managed to do your PhD in less than 3 years, and that too with like 4 on 4 GPA. So how did you manage that?
Um, so again, because I wasn't sure if I want to do a mass or a PhD or going for a job, I
Hmm.
actually kind of promised myself that if I'm going for a PhD, um, uh, I have to do it in a planned way. I have to plan for it. I have to kind of know what I'm doing, and I don't want to like spend 5 6 years for this. I want to gain the knowledge. I want to have the experience, but I want to be able to kind of finish it in a timely manner so I can actually plan for my career. So,
mm,
uh, and then of course, I mean, I had the chance to basically talk to that to my advisor before I joined. So I was able to actually start my research. I think in the first week or two when I actually joined the school. So I didn't really waste time, at least on the research side. And and the same thing with courses. So I tried to actually manage courses and fit them in the first few semesters so I could finish uh, kind of earlier. Because the conversation that I had with other students before, I mean the PhDs, it was that if you spend if you take your time and if you like kind of stay at a program for 5-6 years, then you get frustrated and you kind of lose the track.
mm.
And I didn't want this to happen to me. I just want to stay on track and finish it as early as possible.
So, like talking about the project that you were working on, can you talk a little more about it?
So for my PhD, I was involved in several projects. When I
Mm,
started, my main project was on the railroad dynamics and train dynamics and safety. So
mm,
we were designing some sensory systems for to actually measure the conditions of rail, and they're going on under the trains or on their autonomous geometry cars. So a few different projects in the same line. But yeah, I that was where I actually started working on my PhD. But then I got into some other projects as well, like the we truck dynamics and truck stability systems, and truck control systems. These were all,
wow.
yeah, but these were like toward I think the end of my PhD, or like I think it was like third year of my
Mm,
PhD. I did the same thing during my postdoc. So I worked on the truck projects basically during my
yeah.
postdoc.
So, like, what was the motivation behind selecting these particular projects only? I mean, like because a lot of times a lot of projects become too researchy and do not have a direct impact if you talk about in the real world. So what was your motivation when you were selecting these projects?
Yeah, so I was mostly working on some real world problems,
Hmm.
I guess, because when I started on the railroad projects, those were the projects that were we were trying to find solutions for things that I mean we currently face in the U.S. railroad. So we were trying to
Hmm.
solve some of those problems. Um, and then, of course, when we are truck dynamic projects, it was all about enhancing the stability of what current systems can of what current trucks and trailers basically have. So yeah, it was more on the practical side of it
Right.
than research. During my
Hmm.
masters, I was doing a lot of researchy projects, I could
Hmm.
say. A lot of computational works, developing models and things like this. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I think when I was about to graduate in my master's, I was like, hey, I want to start working on some practical problems,
Yeah.
and that's what I did for my PhD. But yeah, I think all your whatever you do in the research world, it can have an impact. So
Hmm.
when you're working on these futuristic problems, and when you're um, developing a research platform that may not be useful at the moment, or may not be a use case for it, I think it will definitely have an impact in the future as other researchers will try to develop based on what you have developed.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't really do your research from scratch. You're always building up on someone else's work.
Yeah.
So even if you're not working on a practical problem, I think it's still very interesting. You're basically building the framework for others to build on it.
Yeah, that's a really nice point. That so basically, no research goes to waste. Like every research comes to you some at some point or the other for somebody.
Yeah, I think that's a
Hmm.
takeaway.
Next question that I have is regarding the advisor. So I think which is a very important part of any research or any PhD. So how did you choose your advisor?
That's a very good question. I actually chose the program based on the advisor, first of all. So
Okay.
I went for this PhD program or the master's program that I did because of my advisors. So I
Hmm.
actually that was the first thing I looked at when I was applying. I was trying to communicate with the faculty and see who is working on what. Is there any interest there for someone like me? And so I that's what I did. I basically just looked for the faculty and then applied to the program. Um, what I was looking for in a faculty, and I think it's very important, is for PhD advisor. I think you should always look for more supportive people, more supportive faculty, and those who have experience, like they are very experienced in the field and can
Hmm.
give you an insight when you are stuck with your research, because that happens.
Hmm.
You'll get stuck at some point, and then you need someone to show you the way out. And
Yeah.
and that only happens with um, if you have a knowledgeable advisor. If your advisor knows what he or she is doing.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's a very right point. But I think where a lot of students get confused is because the most of the times the young professors or the new professors, they are more energetic.
Yeah.
I feel, about their projects and about their research. So the push is also like more towards finishing the projects or getting the results. So do you feel the same way?
I feel the same way.
Mm.
Um, I think, yeah, I mean, definitely when you have a younger advisor, uh, they they're exploring their fields. They try to establish a portfolio. So they will be pushy. Uh,
Mm.
they are more involved in the research, directly involved in the research.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, depends on the student. Depends on you. If you basically have that, if you basically see that research background in yourself, that you can work with someone like a young professor who hasn't really established his research yet. I think that should be fine, because you will find your way out. But when you're just starting your research, I really recommend everyone to find a more experienced advisor, because that's that person can help you when you are struggling.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nice suggestion, I think. So, okay, I think the third thing that comes to when you're pursuing research after your project and the advisor is the university. So, do you think university plays an important role when it comes to choosing your PhD program?
I think university has some roles. As I said,
Hmm.
I first look for the advisors basically, and I chose a program based on advisor.
Hmm.
But definitely you wanna go to a program that can basically support you if something unexpected happen, right?
Yeah.
It is possible that you lose your funding during your
Yeah.
PhD, and you probably want to be a stronger program, so that they can at least support you for a semester or two.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing is that when you go to a better school, then you probably have, if you get a chance to teach, then that experience would be much more impactful in the future for you. So that's another thing. And then also the connections that you can get when you go to a bigger school. You are actually exposed to different projects. You see many faculty there. You have a chance to actually see more, let's say, impactful people.
Yeah.
And that will help you to establish a bigger network of academic researchers.
So basically, if you want to summarize this in the order of priority, then like the project and the advisor sort of hold a similar priority, and then yeah, you should look for
Yes,
university as
exactly. Yeah.
hmm.
Especially when you're doing a PhD, I think your advisor is probably the most important factor. And then,
Yeah,
of course, is the program or the city that you will live in, and all of this. So these are all lower priority.
yeah, yeah. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I think there are a lot of takeaways from this part of the conversation. Now, moving on to the next part of the conversation and also to the next part of your story. So, after your research, you decided to move to the industry. So, how was that switch like? Because I think research and industry have very
Yeah.
different roles and environments to offer. So, how was that switch for you?
Yeah, that was not a very smooth transition,
Hmm.
because as you said, they are very different. But of course, I
Hmm.
had the chance to, during my PhD, I had a chance to actually work with industry, and like different industrial partners that we had. So
Hmm.
I was very familiar with the environment before I even joined. But of course, uh, the academic setting is very different with industrial setting. When you are working in a company, all expectations are toward for you is to actually deliver some products or meet the deadlines that you have, um, and uh, and basically you don't have too much control over what you're doing. But when you're researching at a university, then you have more control. You're basically defining your own projects. You're writing proposals. You are doing research on the topics that you like, and also you're able to publish your results, and you can communicate with other researchers in your community, which is
Yeah.
totally different with industry. You're basically isolated inside your own company with your colleagues and only focusing on what you are given.
Right, right. And I think that point that you mentioned about the control part of it, right? That becomes, I think, a very big like decision point for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yep.
So one more thing that I would like to understand is when it comes to the R&D in the industry, especially in the bigger companies, like which are doing very heavy and very focused R&D. How is that different from the research that happens in the academia?
So I think the research that they are doing mostly is very valuable. You the main difference is that probably in a bigger company or in those R&D departments, you have a lot more resources than what you will have in an academic setting. In universities, resources are limited, but of course, you have to look and see what you're contributing to. Is it is it going to be published, or who is going to be benefiting from the research that I'm doing? That's a question that I will ask myself. Mostly when you are doing research at universities, at least in our domain, uh,
Hmm.
we are basically trying to improve the state of art in for example, vehicle safety, and this is going to be for the public safety, and it is going to be benefiting the public. But of course, when you are within a company, then things are different. uh, the expectations are different. But
Hmm.
uh, but I think sometimes the resources and the ability that you have in a larger company to basically create new systems or try new ideas, that would have a leverage over what we can actually do in a university, because, as I said, the resources are very limited.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, for as far as your journey is concerned, do you see yourself going back to academics and becoming a professor anytime soon?
I think I do. I sometimes I think about it, and I see it in, I don't, not probably in the very near future, but I see it in myself to actually go back and start contributing uh, in an academic environment. So uh, I think being able to actually teach and mentor students, both in undergrad and graduate level, is very rewarding. And um, I mean, if you actually compare someone who has been in an industry for like 30 years to someone to a faculty member who is retiring and has been in a university for 30 years, I think you can kind of uh, you can compare the two in terms of contributions that they have made. Uh,
Hmm.
and I don't know, like when there's a when you have been in a university for 30 years, you have probably had a lot of you have probably graduated so many students, and
Yeah,
they are and that I think is a very big contribution. And
right.
so so yeah, it is very challenging though. I think that making this decision to go back is challenging. Um, but I think if at some point I see that, hey, I can if I can join a university and do the research that I want,
Hmm.
um, I will consider it.
Nice, nice. Think, yeah, like as you mentioned, the rewards are very high there.
Yeah.
So that's really nicely said, I think. Cool. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this conversation. I think there were so many takeaways from whatever you said, especially for anybody who plans to do PhD and in a field like robotics. So thank you so much for all the knowledge that you shared with us today. And I think in the end, so
No
we
problem.
do this thing called Gyan Ki Baat, which literally translates to words of knowledge or words of wisdom. So, what would be your words of wisdom for everybody out there?
Yeah. So uh, my advice to students and those who are watching this is to actually follow their passion. Uh,
Hmm.
don't get uh, don't get disappointed if a failure happens, and keep up the work, and they will achieve whatever they're looking for.
Great. Yeah, that's very true. So, thank you so much again.
Thank you,
And
Gauri. Thank you everyone for watching. If you like this video, like and subscribe Gyan Seva channel. Thank you guys.